Have you ever thought to yourself, why is the book Goodnight Moon so popular? Why does everybody read it? Why does everybody give it at baby showers? Why is it still around? It's kind of boring. In this video, I want to walk through the book Goodnight Moon with you and show you what really amazing things it's doing and how you can use it to help the child you're reading to grow intellectually and socially and emotionally, and hopefully give you some tools to use when you're reading any children's literature book that will help you harness the power of the book and use it really well to grow the child and nurture them. Thanks so much for watching this today. My name is Colleen Dong. I'm an early ed educator, and I also have my master's in rhetoric. I'm a mother of 2 young kids, and I'm really excited to bring all those perspectives together to walk you through the book Goodnight Moon. So let's get started. So before I get into some questions you can use while you're reading this book to a child, I want to talk to you about just some really important things this book is getting at for children and go over those quickly. Some books are really great for rhyming, some books are great for patterns, and actually this book has both of those things in it, but it's doing 2 really important, significant things that you might be missing. First, this book is really important for teaching visual spatial processing for children. I know that's a bigger term, and I just want to tell you some things that cognitive function helps us do all the time. It's something that helps you be able to merge into traffic when you're on the freeway. It's what helps you read a map. It's what helps you navigate a table of contents in a book. And it's also what helps children be able to line up the numbers for a math problem, be able to work through it in an orderly fashion and compute it correctly. It's what helps students look at the letter F up on the wall in their classroom, hold the image in their minds, and then reproduce that symbol on a blank piece of paper when they're learning penmanship. There are so many ways that visual spatial processing impacts children in and out of the classroom every day. And this book can be a great tool for teaching those skills to children at a young age. So that first application has more to do with the intellectual development of the child. The second thing I want to get to talks more about the social and emotional development of the child. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but let's get started with the first application. I'm sure you've noticed that this book has a pattern in the images and in the illustrations. It goes back and forth between 2-page color illustrations to isolated black and white images of things around the room. This goes hand in hand with the pattern in the narrative. It's broken up into 2 parts. The first part is the reader getting introduced to things in the room, and the second part is the reader saying goodnight to those things. Now, if you're introduced to something in the room in the color illustration, you say goodnight to it in the black and white isolated images, and vice versa. So for example, when the narrator introduces the little kittens and the mittens, that's a full 2-page color illustration where the reader is able to see the kittens and the mittens in the greater context of the room. They see what the kittens are near, what they're playing with. They see where the mittens are in association with the kittens, where the little old woman who says hush is in relation to the kittens and the mittens. But then when the reader says goodnight to the kittens and the mittens, they are in isolated black and white images, just of the kittens, just of the mittens. Now, what this asks the reader to do is put those things back in the context of the room in their mind. That's where that visual spatial processing is coming in hand, and that's what it's building for the child. It's asking them to put the kittens and the mittens back into the room. Where are they? What are they near? What are they next to? Have they moved around since the images have been going in the book? This happens again and again. And that's a really important thing that this book is doing. It's asking the child to put things in and out of context on their own in their mind. So something you can do while you're reading this book is you can say, can you find the kittens in the image when you're first introduced to it? Then later, when it's in black and white, you can ask the child, do you remember where the kittens are in the room? What are they next to? What's near them? What have they been playing with? And it's not telling them on that black and white image. So what they're asked to do is use their short-term memory and their visualizations, cognitive skills, to be able to remember and be able to answer those questions. And you know what? If they don't know the answer, Guess what? The next page is a color illustration again, where there's new narration, but they can go back and answer those questions you were just asking them. And the next time they read it, maybe they've held on to that information a little more, and now they're able to answer those more difficult questions that ask them to do those visualizations. Down the road, this is going to help them be able to hold that image of the F in their minds and recreate that symbol on their blank piece of paper. Just by reading them Goodnight Moon, you're helping them get ready for penmanship and reading on their own, and mathematics and reading a map, all sorts of difficult cognitive skills. And it starts by reading a book like this. So as you can see, this book is developing some really important things for the child. But the second thing I want to get to is what I mentioned earlier. There's a really important social and emotional aspect in this book. And interestingly enough, it comes when the pattern breaks in the book. You'll notice on the second to last page of the book, the reader says goodnight to two things that they were not introduced to at the beginning of the book. Again, the pattern is broken visually. It's a 2-page illustration, but instead of being in color, it's a black and white illustration, kind of bringing the two types of illustrations together in this one. This page reads, "Goodnight stars, goodnight air." Now, this is connected to the visual spatial processing that we were just talking about, because what it's doing is it's asking the reader to bring the context of the room out, literally outside. And what it's doing is it's saying where this room is just like yours. It's under the stars and it's surrounded by air. Suddenly, this is relatable to the child. A room that's kind of funny with red balloons and telephones and a bowl of mush that's not really relatable to readers today is suddenly relatable to virtually every reader reading this book. Almost every room that it's being read in is under the stars and surrounded by air. That's where the pattern breaks. And now something different is happening in the book. When you turn to the final page of the book, the lights are down low, the bunny is sleeping, and it says goodnight noises everywhere. Now the child is being asked to relate not only to the context of where this room is, but to relate to the rabbit himself, which actually is why this book makes such a good goodnight story. Now the child is being asked to relate to the rabbit, something new for the child to do probably. This is new to be able to relate to a character in a book, but it's a hugely important skill, not only for reading, but also just for being a good friend. Being able to find similarities in the midst of differences is what makes people really compassionate and humble and kind. Isn't that what we want for our kids? So reading them a book like this, asking them to relate to someone who maybe doesn't feel relatable to them at first, is such a hugely important social and emotional skill for children to learn. And we're being able to introduce it to them at such a young age, with a really beautiful, simple book. So when you get to this second to last page of the book, when it says goodnight stars, goodnight air, maybe ask the child, is your room under the stars? Is your room surrounded by air? I think this bunny's room is too. Then when you turn to that last page, you can ask them something like, is your room quiet? Do noises go away when it's bedtime for you too? Just simply getting them this idea that they can relate to this character in the book is so important for them. It's so important for them in becoming a good friend, and then being able to read more complex literature later and being able to relate to other characters. I talk about this so much in other books that I analyze, and some of the books that I analyze ask the reader to relate to a character who might even be unlikable, or who might even be the villain in the book too. Again, this is hugely building things like compassion, kindness, empathy in the children, and books are an amazing tool to do that. So hopefully you can see what an amazing tool children's literature really can be in developing some important skills in the children. But the problem is, a lot of us just don't know what questions to ask or what things to point out in the illustrations. There's some things in the description box. I even have a free book guide for the book Goodnight Moon with some good questions for you to ask. And I have other videos I'm excited to share with you. So thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video.